First up is Tag Oil. Tag Oil is a Egypt-focused producer, currently has the BED-1 concession in the Western Desert of Egypt. Presenting from the company will be Toby Pierce, CEO. Toby comes with a wide variety of experience, both on the corporate side and on the capital markets side. And with that, I will pass it over to Toby. Just before Toby starts, though, please note, any questions to be asked, please ask them in the Q&A chat. I will address those questions towards the last 10 minutes of each presentation. And with that, Toby, take it away.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Simon, and thanks to Echelon for having us present today. So excuse the attire. I happen to be in Greece at the moment, but so an international location for an international conference. But I'm sure many of you have seen the Tag Oil story or heard the Tag Oil story. There's a lot of history on our webpage, etc. I really want to highlight a couple of things, though, about the company. So Abhi Badwi joined us in 2020, September of 2020. He brought along Sunil Gupta and a couple of new board members. Took us nearly 18 months to get our license in the Western Desert underway. That was awarded in October of 2022. And Abhi was instrumental in helping us get that. He speaks Arab fluently. He's had a number of roles in the Middle East, which I'll touch on in a moment, and has been, he's actually in Egypt right now and has been very focused on helping us get our concessions and the concessions sorted out. Sunil Gupta, formerly of Bankers Petroleum, he was the CEO at the end there after they sold the Chinese. Extremely good from an operation standpoint. And we've witnessed that firsthand in the field. The bed 1 of 7 well that we just recompleted went off without a hitch. The frac itself was as close to textbook as we could hope. Everything else in Egypt has not necessarily been, but we'll get to that in a few minutes as well. Rounding out the board, many of you probably know Keith Hill. He's on the board he's part of the Lundin Group, has been on our board the longest probably now, nearly 10 years. And then Gavin Wilson represents our largest shareholder, Meridian Capital. Meridian Capital owns around 19.9%. Management and insiders on top of that own another 13.5% on top of that. So the background of TAG and why we're excited specifically to have Abhi and his track record. He's had 2 very successful exits in Egypt, Raleigh Energy, albeit that's a while back now. The assets are still performing quite nicely, believe it or not. Managed to return 730% to shareholders in about an 18-month period. That's where he initially made his core relationships in Egypt. Fast forward to just recently, he came off a company called Kuwait Energy. Kuwait was private. They sold that in 2019, however, to the Chinese group UEG, and about an $800 million US exit. And the key behind that is Abhi was able to rekindle all of his relationships with the government, with the ministry, with EGBC, and really understand how modern Egypt worked. So it's been very, very good for us in that regard. We recently just put out a press release. We've just strengthened our team. We added a gentleman by the name of Sabir Abadi. He's formerly EGPC. He was the vice president of production of EGPC. He was the chairman of HALDA, which is the joint venture between Apache and EGPC. And he is also the chairman of EDC Drilling, so Egyptian Drilling Company. So very, very strong track record credentials. And he's been very good at helping us in Egypt navigate the system. So just a snapshot of where we're at the moment. We have it in and around 18 million Canadian on the balance sheet at the moment. We do have New Zealand royalties. They pay us about $1 million US per year. Our Australian partners that we sold our assets to have just drilled a big well in actually 2 big wells in the Strat Basin in eastern Queensland. Both have significant gas shows and looks quite interesting. So we'll be watching that one closely. But our main concession is the Bed 1 field that we were awarded in October, and RPS has given us over 500 million barrels of oil in place on that concession. There'll be more details to come on that. Cap table, fairly self-evident. The slide, the share price chart has been holding up well. I believe once we start putting out more news flow related to the horizontal well, which is upcoming, we should see that share price continue to perform well. So Egypt in particular is actually quite a good country to do business in. We've been able to move in and hit the ground running. It took a while to get our concessions. The two big negatives, I guess, if you will, about Egypt, it can take a while to get paid in US dollars if you're owed a significant amount of oil sales. That seems to be okay at the moment, although from time to time those payables that EGPC owes you can be a factor. As TAG starting out, we don't anticipate that's going to be too big a deal. Our revenues are quite small relative. We can take Egyptian pounds and spend that money on our in-country staff, etc. The other big difficulty with Egypt is it can be very, very bureaucratic and extremely difficult to navigate. Although with the hire of Samir Abadi, the country manager Gamal Resk, and with Abbey, we feel we have the tools in place to mitigate that. They are very, very pro-oil, very pro-development. Egypt is importing over 300,000 barrels a day of liquids for their own consumption and are desperate for more hydrocarbons. When we were drilling or recompleting our vertical well, the minister's office was getting daily updates. They think it's that important for them to understand what we're up to in the Western Desert. So this is the well we recompleted just recently. Everyone's waiting for the results of the flow test. We should be putting out a press release on Monday morning. There have been a few operational hiccups, a couple sandstorms where we've had to shut the well in, etc. But we'll have over 30 days of test data. The well initially came on at approximately 150 barrels a day of natural flow, and we took the opportunity to put a pump in the hole. We've been pumping that well now fairly stably now for just over 2 weeks, but on and off for over 30 days of production period. We will have oil sales for April. We will have oil sales for May. We're tied right into the plant and are selling oil now. In particular, not much else to really note on the slide, but you can see the thick hydrocolumn section there on the logs, and that's what we were targeting. The Abro Shaft is the source rock for the Western Desert. It's approximately 150 miles by 45 miles in height, and ranges from 30 to 60 meters in depth, in thickness, and that it's very analogous to the Eagle Ford, and it's of significant interest to the Egyptian government and ourselves. So this slide highlights our concession on the right. We've got extremely good well control. We knew the oil was there. Over 45 wells have penetrated the Abro Shaft on our concession. 70 wells in the vicinity, very good seismic, logs. We had some core as well. You can see where our concession's located. It's right in the heart of the Western Desert. Apache and Chiron are immediately to the north of us. There are adjacent concessions that are open. We are actively trying to acquire those open acreage positions, and are very much working with the government and the ministry to try and lock those up. We have had many different discussions with other industry partners as well. I believe that the Apache and crew will be taking more of a wait and see approach, but we are doing our best to see if we can't lock down some more acreage in the near term. So we're in and around the fourth bubble. We are doing all our planning right now, logistics for our upcoming horizontal well. We're basically on track with that well, and we should have activity here in July on the well. So we're building the site at the moment, and we should be in a very good position here to deliver very, very shortly. So this is the overall bed 1 of 7. The well actually the frac itself performed extremely well. The flowback was very, very good. Initially, we had approximately 40% frac fluid come back. We pumped just over 110 tons of sand and 2 different sizes of proppant. Almost 5,000 barrels of slick water, and it's exactly what they're using in the Eagle Ford. And while it's not very big in North American standards, it was significant in Egyptian standards, and it was the largest frac pumped in the Western Desert thus far. Our horizontal, we will pump significantly more, over anywhere from 15 to 20 stages at this juncture. So lots of words on this slide, but basically what we're trying to achieve, RPS gave us 530 million barrels of oil in place, with over 430 million US of reserves value unrisked, if we can unlock the 20 locations that are in our field development plan. Now, we submitted only 20 well locations to the government. We have a 20-year concession life, 10 years plus a 10-year extension. And the goal was to really keep our work commitments low, achievable. If oil prices, God forbid, went significantly lower, it would put us in a position where we could meet our commitments. We anticipate drilling this up fairly quickly. We see anywhere from 40 to 60 locations on our concession as we speak. That may change, that may grow over time as we do more work, especially on the southern part of the concession and the deeper parts of the concession as well. So really what got us excited about the Abrochef and the possibilities here is it's very analogous to the Eagle Ford. It's probably 80 to 90% equivalent to the Eagle Ford. Same deep positional environment, same rough age, permeabilities and porosities are quite similar, same depth of emplacement. The pressure is a little bit higher at Abrochef, in the Western Desert. The water saturation is a little bit lower, so those are both more beneficial. But our oil is somewhat heavier, so that's seen as a slight negative overall. So this is what in particular has got Egypt very excited about what we're doing. The Eagle Ford's producing over 1 million barrels a day right now of liquids. It peaked at 1.8 million barrels of liquids, albeit there's over 26,000 wellbores now in the Eagle Ford, so significantly further along than Egypt and the Abrochef. But directionally, that's what people are excited about, and the government of Egypt so excited about, along with ourselves. We're very active, specifically in Egypt, trying to acquire additional acreage. Very much focused on the Abrochef, and in fact, the entire Abroch package as well. There are other unconventional horizons in Egypt. The Apollonia, which is very similar to the Austin Chalk, and the Homeland, it's called. We are quite far along in discussions with various government entities about picking up additional acreage. Timing on that, it's Egypt, so it could be anywhere from a month to several months down the road. But we feel by the end of the year we'll be successful on at least one acquisition. We are looking at select areas outside Egypt, albeit only 1 or 2 countries. In Oman, in particular, there's a bid round currently. We are looking at the data and evaluating. Our focus is very much exploitation. Sunil and his team have done a great job in the past of unlocking more difficult reservoirs where the oil is there. experts at polymer floods, water floods, etc. So that's the focus going forward, and that's where we'll take most of our time and spend that. What I'm so excited about right now is the way the well is performing. Yabro Chef has met all of our engineering expectations, our production expectations. Everyone in the field is extremely excited. You know, I don't have much to go on. I don't have much Eagle Ford experience, but the experts we employed out of the Eagle Ford are quite excited. Our FracMod team are over the moon. This went exactly to plan, exactly what they understood. So I have to give the team credit. They did a great job. So everyone's looking forward now, of course, to production results, which will come on Monday, as I suggested, and then also to the horizontal well. And we should have results from that horizontal end of September, early October, inshallah, as they say in Egypt. There are always delays. One interesting anecdote recently, basically Schlumberger told us to lock down all of our services because Saudi Arabia is sucking up all the service provider content in the Middle East right now. They just contracted 17 offshore rigs and are making a huge push. So it's going to be busy and services will be tight, but done a great job so far of locking down everything we need, and we've been importing stuff from Canada as needed.
Thanks, Toby. Maybe we'll stay on that services access issue, because I think that's an important issue to address. You guys are out there doing some of the bigger fracs in the country. You know, how much lead time do you have in terms of you've locked up your services? You know, are you settled for and equipped for the next 2 years, 3 years of development, or is it more on a bit of a one-off basis, and then you just got to get back in the queue and get lined up for the next drill and frac?
It's more of a one-off basis, although we have secured the sand from a local sand mine. The guys have gone out and secured that sand for all of our future needs going forward, at least as we anticipate right now. If we do ramp up to 2, 3, 4 rigs for a development phase, we probably will need to source more sand. There's already the drill steel and casing, etc. Bits, all that sort of stuff is quite available now. There was a real shortage. The supply end of things has definitely caught up. The slowdown in drilling onshore US is helping us. We can import steel and parts, etc., from Houston, from Canada, and of course, we're also sourcing equipment from China.
Yeah, great. And maybe a question in the chat related to that. You know, we've seen the success of horizontal multilateral wells not being fracked in Western Canada. Obviously, the Clearwater is the biggest example, but we're seeing that applied to some more heavy and medium oil plays, and even some lighter oil plays like the Bakken. Any thoughts on attempting a multilateral and skipping the frack in the reservoir?
Yeah, no, that's the guys have looked at that scenario. There is a scenario whereby we drill the well, we drill it horizontal. That's the T100, it's called, our next horizontal. Be about 1,000-meter lateral. It's highly dependent on the fracture networks it intersects. We may choose to produce it without fracking it to start, just to see what it'll do, just to get some verification on what those natural fractures will give us. But ultimately, we want to frack the first couple wells and see what will happen. There is a well, not on our acreage, unfortunately, but to the north that tested over 3,000 barrels a day, and it was never fracked. It was just horizontally drilled by Apache, probably about 10 years ago now.
Great. Maybe just moving on to the marketing aspect of the business. How is the oil moved from the field? What is the benchmark that it's sold at? and what kind of impacts the differentials to some of the key benchmarks like Brent?
Sure. So it's priced off Brent. EGPC aggregates all the oil from the Western Desert. Ourselves, Apache, EGPC's oil, just over 300,000 barrels, and then sells that on behalf of the entire group. Right now, it's Brent minus 50 cents is what they're getting, but it has ranged anywhere from Brent minus $4 to Brent plus $2, depending on the needs and the pricing that EGPC can get. Our oil is evacuated through a pipeline. It was built by Shell, so we get access to the facilities that were built by Shell in the 80s. There's about 20,000 barrels of capacity, about 15,000 barrels a day of spare capacity, and then a pipeline directly to the Alhambra oil terminal. So for the time being, all of our production is taken care of through that network.
Okay, great. Just in terms of development, we got one in the chat, and I kind of had the same question. But essentially, you have a 20 well commitment. How long to drill out that commitment?
Ideally, so once we have a better understanding of the horizontal drill and the productivity, the logistics, and the whole 9 yards, we anticipate we will go to running at least one rig permanently, and that rig will essentially allow us to drill between 4 and 5 wells per year. We should be able to get through, everything being equal, we should be able to get through those 20 wells in 4 to 5 years.
And then just, you talked about the opportunities outside of the development plan. When are you first going to test some of these other opportunities outside of that 20 well program?
Initially, we'll be very focused on the Abro Shaft, and that's where over 3 years of science, engineering, and a huge amount of work has gone into. We're just starting to get our heads around some of the other zones and asset packages. So very much focused for the first year and a half on the Abro Shaft and the development we have there. We do have potentially some access to additional wellbores. We are negotiating for vertical and horizontal candidates, sidetrack candidates from existing wells that are plugged up and/or producing low amounts of oil. We're negotiating with EGPC and the government on that, and we'll see what we can bring about. Ideally, we are recompleting wells and drilling new wells at the same time, just to boost our production, get our cash flow up.
Another question from the chat. Outside of Oman, what other jurisdictions would you look at? Only oil, or would you look at gas opportunities as well?
Yeah, gas is fair game. So only onshore, Middle East, North Africa. Would be very hard pressed to chase anything with an exploration angle. It needs to have the molecules in the ground discovered that we know we can exploit. Very focused. Outside of Oman, we have done a little bit of preliminary work on Bahrain, but it remains right now. I can't see us going outside of. Never say never. A great opportunity may present itself, but I can't see ourselves going outside Egypt, Oman, or perhaps Bahrain or one of the Gulf states.
Okay, great. Well, that takes us to the bottom of the hour. I'd like to thank Toby for coming in and presenting us today. If you have any questions that haven't been answered from the participants, please feel free to reach out to someone at Echelon, and we can help you get those questions answered.